Salete, welcome to this video lesson on chapter 30, section 3, starting at Tandem puer. At last the boy, Kenon parata messe nuntiat, announces that dinner has been prepared. Triclinium intremus, let's enter the triclinium, the dining room, says Julius. Atque convivai Llpsi, and the happy guests. Triclinium floribus exornatum et veste pulcherrima stratum intrant. Enter, entrant, the dining room decorated with flowers, floribus exornatum, and strewn or covered with most beautiful cloth, veste pulcherrima. Rosae et lilia, roses and lilies, et alia multa florum genera, and many other kinds of flowers, in mensa sparsa sunt, have been scattered on the table. Inter vasa et pocula argentea, in between the silver vessels and cups, or dishes and cups. Nec enim quidquam nisi argentum mensam decit viri nobilis, nor indeed is anything except silver befit, decet, a table of a noble man. Argentem quidem minoris pretii est, quam aurum. Indeed, silver is of a lesser value, lesser price than gold. Nec vero quisquam ex vasis aureis cenat, nor indeed does anyone dine from golden dishes. Nisi homines divitissimi, atque gloriosi, except for people who are richest, and gloriosi basically means bragging or braggart kind of people that like to show off and brag about their stuff. Ut reges orientis, as kings of the East. So that's a little bit of Roman social snobbery there. They viewed a lot of the Persians and other kind of Eastern kings, the Parthians during the late Roman Empire, as being sort of overly sophisticated, overly cultured, and decadent, so they would show off their wealth too much, basically. Of course, many Roman emperors also did the same, so this is not just something they would do. But it is something that is common to Roman perception, let's say. So it's a common Roman stereotype. So if you're really rich in Rome, have silver dishes and cups, not gold. Julius, dominus convivi, Julius, the master of the party, cum Aemilia in lecto medio accumbit, is reclining accumbit with Aemilia on the middle couch. In aliis duobus lectis, on the other two couches, binae convivi accumbunt. Two guests at a time are reclining. Okay, so each couch has two. Cornelius et Faba in lecto sumo ad sinistram Julii. Cornelius and Fabia, you have to understand, recline on the lectus summus, the highest couch, not highest by altitude or anything, but just highest social position, to the left of Julius. Orontes et Paula ad dextram Aemiliae in lecto imo. Orontes and Paula to the right of Aemilia on the lowest couch. And again, it's not actually physically lower, it's just social class of people on that couch typically is lesser than the other two. Okay, so the host would place their most honored guests on the lectus summus and the lesser honored guest on the lectus imus. Of course, if you got invited to this kind of a formal dining situation in the triclinium, you're really honored just straight up, because most people maybe would get a sportula, kind of a handout basket, that they might come by the patronus's house and say, hey, I'm here to support Julius, right? And then the slaves might give them a little basket, a sportula full of food. They're not going to be invited in to dine. Only the really high-class people get to do that. All right, and then also in line 99, tum demum, then at last, incipit cana, the dinner begins. Primum ova convivis opponantur. At first, the eggs are placed out for the guests. Dende pisces, then the fishes. cum holeribus, along with vegetables. Sequitur caput caenae, there follows the head or the chief thing of the feast. Porcusquem Julius ipse egrege elegit, a pig which Julius himself picked out of the herd. Postremo mensa secunda, last, the second table. Now, second table is a word that basically describes what we might call a dessert. Nuces, nuts, uvae, grapes, varia genera malorum, various kinds of apples. So the traditional appetizer would be some type of a boiled egg, and they were usually soft boiled. And then the traditional kind of dessert would often include apples. So there's a Roman saying, ab ovo ad malum, from the egg to the apple, and it means from the beginning to the end. All right, cibus optimus est, the food is the best. Atque convivis placet, and it pleases the guests. Maxime vero laudatur caro porci, but particularly praised is the meat of the pig, caro porci. Now, carnis is where we get carnivore from. Caro is the nominative, but carnis, the genitive, is where we get that "in" from that we get in all of our derivatives. Quam minister cultro acuto secat, meat which, quam, the attendant cuts with a sharp knife, convivis spectantibus, with the guests watching, or while the guests are watching, we would probably say. Haec caro valde mihi placet, inquit Fabia. Fabia says, this meat pleases me very much. Cum primum carnem gustavit, when first she tasted the meat. That is to say, as soon as she tasted the meat. Cocus iste sane negotium suum scit. That cook of yours certainly knows his business, his job. Sane is a synonym of certo or certe. Ego cocum non laudo, I do not praise the cook. Inquit Orontes, says Orontes. Et salem carni aspergit, and he scatters, or perhaps sprinkles, we would say, salt on the meat. Qui sale non utitur, who does not use salt. Okay, and that again is in reference to why he doesn't praise the cook who does not use salt. Optima quidem est caro. Indeed, the meat is the best, sed sale caret, but it is lacking salt. Orontes cibum sale aspergere solet. Orontes is accustomed to, in other words, usually scatters his food with salt, sprinkles his food with salt, ut sitim augiat, in order that he may increase his thirst. So this is kind of like people at a bar who eat a lot of pretzels, salty food, so that they drink more beer. So he's going to drink more wine, and he's increasing his thirst by putting a lot of salt on his food. Sal est materia alba. Salt is a white material, quae in mare et sub terra invenitur, which is found in the sea and under the earth. Iam ministri vinum et caladam in pocula fundunt. Now the attendants pour wine, and caladam is short for caladam aquam, hot water, into the cups, in pocula. Romani vinum cum aqua miscent. Romans mix wine with water. Neque vinum merum bibere solent, nor are they accustomed to drinking pure wine. So merum means pure or unmixed. Solus orontes, only Orontes, cui non placet vinum mixtum, who does not find the mixed wine pleasing. Literally it says, for whom the mixed wine is not pleasing. Merum potat, drinks the pure. Okay, so Orontes is the only one at the party out of the 6 of them who is drinking pure wine instead of wine mixed with water. Sed is Graecus est, but he is a Greek, atque libertinus, and a freedman. Okay, now a freedman means that he used to be a slave but has been freed by his master. And often freedmen in Roman imperial society, here we're in the 2nd century AD in this book, In this time period, freedmen could become very, very wealthy if their master freed them and they had had a lot of experience in business. They could make a great fortune for themselves. Libertinus est qui servus fuit. Libertinus is the one who was a slave, et liberatus est, and has been freed. In lecto imo accubant libertini. The freedmen, libertini, recline on the lowest couch. And again, social position is what we're talking about here. So even if they were wealthier than the other guests, if the other guest was free-born, then they would be on the lowest couch. Again, this is a social kind of status thing. The clothes that Romans wore, the kind of jewelry they wore, like what rings they wore, the stripes on their tunics and togas, would imply things like, hey, this guy's equestrian because he has the narrow purple stripe. This guy's senatorial because he has a broad purple stripe. This guy has this ring here, so he's, part of the equestrian class, right? And then also the seating here. All of these things really point out immediately where people are in the society. Now, Roman society did have some social mobility, certainly probably more than many ancient societies, because again, you could be a slave but then become a very wealthy freedman. You couldn't hold certain public offices though, but maybe your son or your grandson would be able to become a senator or something like that eventually. So you could move through the ranks. And a poor person could enter the army, and if he made it through and survived all of his years of service, when he retired, he could become part of the upper middle class, being maybe an equestrian or maybe the rank below equestrian. So being a very wealthy person if he retired as kind of a senior centurion in the highest rank in his legion. All right. Julius Poculum tolens, Julius lifting his cup, says, inquit, ergo bibamus, therefore let's drink. Hoc vinum factum est, this wine has been made, ex optimis uvis mearum vinearum, out of the best grapes of my vineyards. Nec vinum meum peius esse mihi videtur, nor indeed does my wine seem to be worse to me, quam vinum illud Falernum, than that Falernian wine, quod vinum Italiae optimum habetur, which is held to be the best wine of Italy. Okay, so the host is showing off here and claiming his own wine, which he lives near Mons Albanus, the Alban Hill, and Lacus Albanus, the Alban Lake. His Alban wine is as good as Falernian wine. And Falernian wine is from Campania, which would be kind of south and a bit east of Rome, down along the coast there, following the Appian Way or the Via Latina, as you see in the picture in the margin. Statim Cornelius, immediately Cornelius, says, inquit, sane optimum, certainly the very best, vinum est tuum, is your wine. Etiam melius quam Falernum, even better than the Falernian. And let me back up for a minute. I alluded to what this said, but I didn't translate those first two lines. So up at the top of the page, Falernum est vinum. Falernium is the wine, ex agro Falerno, from the Falernian territory or field, regione Campaniae, in the region of Campania. All right. And so back down to line 127. Itemque Fabia, likewise Fabia, says, inquit, sana ita est. Indeed, it is so, certainly so, sana ita est. Nam ea omnibus de rebus idem sintit quod maritus, for she, ea, senses or feels the same thing, sintit idem, about all matters, omnibus de rebus, that her husband does, quod maritus. So that is to say, Fabia, whenever she expresses an opinion, she just kind of parrots her husband. And, Romans, generally being a pretty patriarchal society, would often expect women to do that. But Roman women, of course, would probably frequently want to do their own thing. And we've seen Amelia certainly speak against her husband quite freely. All right, 130. At Paula, but Paula, vinum gustans, tasting the wine, says, hoc vinum nimis acerbumes, this wine is too sour. Os mihi contrahitur, my mouth is contracting or is being contracted, mihi for me. We would just say my mouth is puckered up or something like that in English. Ego vinum dulce amo. I like sweet wine. Simper mel vino mischio. I always mix honey with the wine. Statim minister mel apportat. Immediately an attendant carries honey to her. Quod Paula in poculum suum fundit, which Paula pours into her cup. Mel est quod apes ex floribus quaerunt. Honey is what bees seek out or search out from the flowers. Nihil mele ducius est. Nothing is sweeter than honey. Julius says, idem non omnibus placet. The same thing does not please all. Said, quid nam tu sintis, Orontes? But what in the world do you think or feel, Orontes? Utrum veni genus melius esse tibi videtur, Falernum an Albanum. Which of the two kinds of wine seems to you to be better, the Falernian or the Alban? And of course the Alban is his own private wine from his estate here. Equidim inquit Orontes? I, for my part, says Orontes, or in my opinion. That's how you could translate equidim. Sintitiam meum non ante dicam, will not say my opinion, my feeling, before, quam utrumque gustavero, before I will have tasted each. So basically he's saying, serve me some Falernian too, so I can drink the Alban and the Falernian, and I'll compare them for you. Ad hoc Julius, recte me mones inquit. To this Julius says, you rightly are advising me or admonishing me, unum vinum genus parum esse in bona mensa. That one kind of wine, unum vini genus, is too little, parum esse, at a good table or on a good table. So basically, he's saying, yeah, I won't be stingy here. I'll bring out some of the best, and you can directly compare. Profecto, absolutely, utrumque gustabis, you will taste each or both. Age puer profer falernum. Come on, boy, bring out the Falernian. Quod optimum habeo, which I have the best, or which best Falernian I have. That is to say, we would probably state this in English something like, bring out the best Falernian which I have, changing the word order a bit. Tum demum, then at last, hoc vinum cum illo comparare poterimus. We will be able to compare this wine with that one. Cum utrumque gustaverimus, when we will have tasted each or both. Ergo, pocula exarite, amici. Therefore, drain your cups, friends. Cum primum meum vinum potaveritis falernum potabitis. When first you will have drunk my wine, then you will drink the Falernian. So basically he's telling them to drain their current cups of his Alban wine so that they can get them filled up again with Falernian. All right, poculum Orontes primum Falerno completur. The cup of Orontes is first filled with Falernian. Nam is jam predim poculum suum exaucit, for he had already long since drained his cup. Dende ministeri, then the attendants, Falernum in cetera pocula fundunt, pour the Falernian into the other cups. Omnes, postquam vinum gustaverunt, everybody, after they tasted the wine, idem sentiunt, feel the same. Vinum Falernum, the Falernian wine, multo melius esse, vino Albano, is much better than the Alban wine. So, in other words, despite what Julius said about his wine isn't actually as good as the Falernian, which is known to be sort of the prime wine of all of Italy in the ancient world. Cornelius et Orontes inter se aspiciunt. Cornelius and Orontes look between themselves. Now we would say look at each other, look at one another. Latin has no pronoun that means each other or one another. That's called a reciprocal pronoun. So Latin has to say look between themselves or look at themselves, something like that. And that's what we have here. So you could translate it, look at each other, but just note that Latin doesn't directly say that. Neuter eorum, neither of them, sententiam suam aperte dicere audit, dares to say his opinion openly, because they don't want to offend their host. Tum orontes sic incipit. Then Orontes begins thus. Nescio equidim utrum melius sit. I don't know for my part which of the two is better. Dulcius quidem est falernum. The Falernian is indeed sweeter. Nec vero tuum vinum nimis acerbum esse quinsio. But nor indeed do I think that your wine is too sour. At Cornelius prudenter, utrumque inquit aeque bonum est. But Cornelius prudently, or perhaps wisely, says, each is equally good. Neutrum melius esse mihi videtur. Neither seems to me to be better. Now, I'm not sure why the narrator describes this as wisely. I think perhaps what he's saying is he doesn't want the conversation to continue because he doesn't want people to have to lie because he suspects, because it says everybody feels the same. So he suspects that they too probably don't think his wine is as good, and he's just trying to kind of smooth over it here and saying they're both okay, they're both equally good, fudging it a bit. All right, well, that concludes this chapter story, and I hope you learned a few things this time about Roman society and kind of dinner culture and these kind of high social class meals. Again, only really fancy people would have the triclinium, the dining room, and be able to have all these 3 couches and the slaves to serve them and everything like this. But it was a big social event for those people that were part of this society. Valete! Ad proximum tempus.